The Grand Hall of the Galactic Union buzzed with activity. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved about, their voices a mix of clicks, whistles, and rumbles. This was the biggest meeting of space empires in the last 100 years. In one corner, a group of tall, blue-skinned aliens with 4 arms talked in low voices. They were the Zarkon, rulers of 50 star systems. Nearby, the insect-like Vexri cleaned their antennas, their compound eyes scanning the room. The Vexri controlled the largest trade routes in the galaxy. At the center of the hall stood the mighty Drogoth. Their scaly skin shimmered under the lights as they towered over the other aliens. The Drogoth Empire was the oldest and most powerful in the known universe. Suddenly, the room fell quiet. All eyes turned to the entrance as a group of newcomers walked in. They looked different from the rest. Only 2 arms, 2 legs, and skin in shades of brown. These were the humans, the newest members of the Galactic Union. The lead human, a woman named Sarah Chen, stepped forward. She wore a simple blue uniform with a silver badge. Her black hair was tied back, and her dark eyes scanned the room confidently. "Greetings, members of the Galactic Union," Sarah said, her voice clear and strong. "We thank you for this chance to speak." The Drogoth leader, General Kraz, let out a low growl. "Speak then, human. What news is so important that you called this meeting?" Sarah smiled. "We have made a breakthrough in 7th-dimensional technology." The room erupted in noise. Some aliens laughed. Others shouted in disbelief. The Zarkon delegation whispered among themselves, their 4 arms moving in quick gestures. General Kraz raised a clawed hand, and the room fell silent again. "Impossible," he said. "Even the Drogoth have only mastered 5th-dimensional travel. You expect us to believe that humans, barely 50 years into space travel, have conquered the 7th dimension." Sarah nodded. "We understand your doubt, General. But it's true. We have built a ship that can move through the 7th dimension." The Vexri representative clicked its mandibles. "What proof do you offer, human?" "We are prepared to demonstrate our ship's abilities," Sarah replied. "We call it the Nexus." The aliens in the room looked at each other. Some seemed curious, others worried. The Zarkon leader stepped forward, his blue skin shimmering. "This is a trick," he said. "The humans are lying to gain power in the Union." Sarah shook her head. "We have no reason to lie, honored Zarkon. We seek only to share our discovery with the galaxy." General Kraz's eyes narrowed. "If this is true, human, it would change everything. The balance of power, the nature of space travel itself." "We know," Sarah said. "That's why we're here. We want to work with the Union, not against it." The room buzzed with talk again. The Vexri huddled together, their antennae twitching rapidly. The Zarkon argued among themselves, their 4 arms waving in the air. Sarah waited patiently. She knew this news would shake the galaxy. Humans had been seen as the new kids, barely worth notice in galactic politics. Now they held the key to power no one had dreamed possible. Finally, General Kraz spoke again. "We will see this demonstration, human. But be warned, if this is a trick, the consequences will be severe." Sarah nodded. "Understood, General. We're ready when you are." As the meeting broke up, aliens rushed to contact their homeworlds. News of the human claims spread across the galaxy at light speed. On 1,000 planets, leaders and scientists debated what this could mean. Back on their ship, Sarah met with her team. "It's done," she said. "They took the bait." Her chief scientist, Dr. Lee, looked worried. "Are you sure about this, Sarah? Once we show them the Nexus, there's no going back." Sarah's eyes gleamed with determination. "I'm sure, Doctor. It's time for humanity to take its place in the stars. The galaxy isn't ready for us. But ready or not, here we come." As their ship prepared for the demonstration, Sarah looked out at the stars. She knew that after today, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity was about to change everything. The day of the demonstration arrived. Hundreds of alien ships gathered around a remote star system, their sensors primed to record every detail. At the center of this cosmic gathering floated the human vessel, Nexus. It looked small and unremarkable next to the massive warships of the Dragath and the sleek cruisers of the Zarkon. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Nexus, her heart racing with excitement and nerves. This was the moment that would change everything. She turned to her crew, a mix of the best scientists and pilots Earth had to offer. "Ready?" she asked. Dr. Lee nodded, his fingers dancing over the control panel. "All systems are go, Captain. The seventh dimensional drive is online." Sarah took a deep breath and opened a channel to the watching alien ships. "Honored members of the Galactic Union, we are ready to begin our demonstration." General Kraz's face appeared on the main screen, his scaly features set in a skeptical frown. "Proceed, human. Show us this impossible technology of yours." Sarah nodded to her pilot. "Take us in, slow and steady." The Nexus began to move. At first, it looked like normal space travel, but then something strange happened. The stars around the ship began to blur and stretch. Colors that had no name in any alien language flashed across the hull. In the alien ships, sensors went crazy. Instruments designed to measure third, fourth, and even fifth-dimensional movements couldn't make sense of what they were seeing. "Impossible," shouted a Zarkon scientist, all four of his arms waving in disbelief. The Vexri observers clicked their mandibles rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. Their compound eyes couldn't process the visual information coming from the Nexus. On the bridge of the Nexus, Sarah and her crew worked calmly. To them, the swirl of higher dimensions was a familiar sight. They had trained for months to navigate this strange realm. "Taking us to full power," Dr. Lee announced. The Nexus seemed to stretch, becoming impossibly long one moment and infinitely thin the next. Then, in a flash of light that temporarily blinded every sensor in the system, it vanished. Panic broke out among the alien ships. Had the humans destroyed themselves? Was this all an elaborate hoax? General Kraz bellowed orders to his fleet. "Find them. I want every inch of this system scanned." But before the alien ships could even begin their search, another flash lit up space. The Nexus reappeared, but not where it had vanished. It was now on the other side of the star system, a journey that should have taken hours completed in mere seconds. Sarah's voice came over the communication channels, calm and clear. "As you can see, honored members of the Union, the Nexus has successfully traveled through the seventh dimension. We have crossed the star system in an instant." Silence fell over the gathered ships. The aliens were stunned. This wasn't just new technology. It was a complete revolution in the understanding of physics. The Zarkon leader was the first to speak. How is this possible? Our greatest scientists said this could never be done." Sarah smiled. "Human ingenuity, honored Zarkon. We saw possibilities where others saw limits." General Kraz's voice was low and dangerous when he finally spoke. "Do you understand what you've done, human? You've upset the balance of power in the entire galaxy." "We understand, General," Sarah replied. "That's why we're offering to share this technology with all members of the Galactic Union." This announcement caused another uproar. Share the technology. It was unheard of. Most races guarded their scientific secrets jealously. As the alien leaders argued among themselves, Sarah turned to her crew. "Phase 1 complete," she said quietly. "Now for the hard part." Dr. Lee looked worried. "Do you think they'll accept our offer?" Sarah's eyes were hard. "They don't have a choice. If they refuse, we'll use the Nexus to protect ourselves. And they know they can't stop us." As the Nexus floated in space, the entire galaxy held its breath. Humanity had just changed the rules of the game. And no one, not even Sarah, knew exactly what would happen next. The age of human dominance in the galaxy had begun. The grand meeting hall of the Galactic Union was in chaos. Alien representatives argued loudly, their voices a mix of shouts, clicks, and electronic beeps. The demonstration of the Nexus had shaken the very foundations of galactic politics. In the center of this storm stood Sarah Chen, her face calm despite the tension around her. She watched as General Kraz of the Drogoth tried to bring order to the meeting. "Silence!" roared Kraz, his scaly skin flashing warning colors. The room quieted, all eyes turning to the massive alien. "We must discuss this calmly. The humans have offered to share their technology. We need to decide how to respond." Suddenly, all communication devices in the room buzzed with an urgent message. The Vexry ambassador, its insect-like features twitching nervously, read the message aloud. "Emergency situation in the Omega sector," it clicked. "The Void Eaters have broken through the defense line. They're consuming entire solar systems." A wave of fear swept through the room. The Void Eaters were an ancient horror, a force that devoured everything in its path. For centuries, they had been contained in a remote part of the galaxy, but now they were free. General Kraz turned to Sarah. "Human, your ship. How fast can it reach the Omega sector?" Sarah consulted quickly with Dr. Lee. "The Nexus could be there in minutes," she replied. The alien representatives murmured in amazement. The Omega sector was on the far side of the galaxy. Even the fastest ships would take weeks to reach it. "Then we have no choice," declared the Zarkon leader, all four of his arms raised in a gesture of decision. "The humans must go. They're our only hope of stopping the Void Eaters before it's too late." Sarah nodded. "We're willing to help, but we want observers from each major race to come with us, to see how the Nexus works and to verify our actions." There was a moment of hesitation, then agreement. Quickly, a team was assembled. General Kraz himself volunteered to represent the Drogoth. A young Zarkon scientist named Salter joined, along with a Vexry tactician called Zik. As they boarded the Nexus, the alien observers couldn't hide their amazement. The ship's interior was unlike anything they had seen before. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, and the air hummed with energy. "Welcome aboard," Sarah said as they reached the bridge. "Please, take your positions. We're about to depart." The aliens strapped themselves into specially designed seats. Dr. Lee began the launch sequence, his fingers flying over controls that made no sense to the observers. Entering seventh-dimensional space in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to twist around them. Colors that shouldn't exist flashed across the view screens. General Kraz felt his scales ripple in ways he didn't know were possible. Zelter's 4 arms wrapped around himself as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. Zik's compound eyes spun rapidly, unable to process the information. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The view screens cleared, showing a familiar starfield. "We've arrived in the Omega sector," Sarah announced calmly. The alien observers stared in disbelief. The journey that should have taken weeks was over in moments. But there was no time to marvel at the technology. The scene outside was one of horror. In the distance, they could see the Void Eaters, massive dark shapes that seemed to swallow light itself. Entire stars winked out as they watched. "By the Ancient Ones," whispered General Kraz. "We're too late." Sarah's eyes hardened with determination. "No, we're not. Dr. Lee, prepare the seventh-dimensional disruptors. We're going to show these Void Eaters what humanity can do." As the Nexus moved towards the cosmic horror, the alien observers watched in awe and fear. They had come to learn about human technology. Now, they were about to witness a battle for the fate of the galaxy. Sarah gripped the arms of her captain's chair. This was the real test, not just of the Nexus, but of humanity's place in the universe. Whatever happened next would change everything forever. "All hands," she said, her voice steady. "Prepare for battle." The Nexus hurtled through the chaos of the Omega sector, weaving between dying stars and the massive, dark forms of the Void Eaters. On the bridge, Sarah Chen barked orders as her crew worked frantically to prepare their defenses. Dr. Lee, status on the seventh dimensional disruptors. Sarah called out. Charging, Captain. 80% and rising. Dr. Lee responded, his fingers dancing over glowing panels. The alien observers watched in a mix of awe and terror. General Kraz's scales had turned a pale shade of green, a sign of extreme stress in Druga physiology. Zalter, the young Zarkon scientist, was using all four of his arms to take notes at an incredible speed. Zik-Zik, the Vexri tactician, stood perfectly still, its compound eyes taking in every detail of the ship's operations. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. A Void Eater had noticed them and was now giving chase. Evasive maneuvers, Sarah shouted. The pilot, a young woman named Maya, nodded and sent the Nexus into a series of impossible twists and turns. The alien observers gasped as the ship seemed to stretch and compress, moving in ways that defied the laws of physics as they understood them. They watched in amazement as the Nexus effortlessly dodged the Void Eater's attacks, moving through dimensions that the monstrous creature couldn't reach. This is incredible, Zalter muttered, his four eyes wide with wonder. The ship isn't just traveling through space, it's bending reality itself. Zik-Zik clicked its mandibles in agreement. Such power. With this technology, the humans could rule the galaxy if they wanted to. General Kraz overheard this and growled low in his throat. The thought of human dominance clearly unsettled him. As the chase continued, Dr. Lee called out, Captain, the disruptors are fully charged. Sarah nodded grimly. Good. Now we show these cosmic horrors what humanity is capable of. All hands, brace for dimensional shift. The crew and observers held tight as Sarah gave the order. Activate the seventh dimensional disruptors. Full power. The Nexus seemed to glow from within, pulsing with energy that hurt to look at directly. Then, with a sound that wasn't quite a sound, more a feeling that rattled the bones of every being on the ship, the disruptors fired. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The pursuing Void Eater, a creature of unimaginable size and power, suddenly found itself twisted and stretched across multiple dimensions. It writhed in apparent agony, its dark form distorting in ways that made the alien observers feel sick to watch. Then, with a silent explosion that rippled across the fabric of spacetime, the Void Eater simply ceased to exist. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. Even Sarah looked shocked at the power they had just unleashed. By all that's holy, General Kraz whispered, his voice a mix of awe and fear. What have you humans created? Sarah turned to the alien observers, her face serious. This is why we wanted you here. You needed to see what we're capable of, and why we're offering to share this technology. Used wrongly, it could destroy everything. Used wisely, it could save us all. As if to emphasize her point, alarms began blaring across the ship. Dr. Lee's voice was urgent as he reported, Captain, we've got multiple Void Eaters converging on our position. They've noticed us now. Sarah's eyes hardened with determination. Then we give them a fight they'll never forget. All hands to battle stations. We're taking the fight to them. As the Nexus prepared to face the oncoming horde of cosmic horrors, the alien observers exchanged glances. They had come to learn about human technology. But now they were witnessing something far more significant, the birth of a new galactic superpower. The battle for the Omega Sector was just beginning, and with it, a new chapter in the history of the universe was being written. Humanity, armed with the power of the seventh dimension, was about to change everything. The Nexus hung in space, a tiny spark of light against the vast darkness of the Omega Sector. Around it, the Void Eaters swarmed, their massive forms blotting out entire star systems. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as the cosmic horrors closed in from all sides. Inside the bridge, Sarah Chen stood tall, her eyes fixed on the main view screen. Dr. Lee, status on the disruptors. Recharged and ready, Captain, Dr. Lee replied, his voice tense but steady. The alien observers watched in a mix of fear and fascination. General Kraz's claws dug into the arms of his chair, leaving deep scratches. Zalter's 4 arms worked furiously, recording every detail of the battle. Zik-Zik stood perfectly still, its compound eyes taking in the entire scene at once. "We can't take them all on at once," Maya, the pilot, said. "There are too many." Sarah nodded grimly. "We don't have to. We just need to disrupt their attack formation. Maya, prepare for rapid dimensional shifts." Dr. Lee set the disruptors to scattered burst mode. As the crew rushed to obey, Sarah turned to the alien observers. "Watch closely," she said. "This is why humanity has survived against all odds. We adapt." With a series of commands, the Nexus sprang into action. It blinked in and out of existence, appearing at different points around the Void Eater swarm. Each time it reappeared, it fired its disruptors, sending waves of seventh-dimensional energy rippling through space. The effect on the Void Eaters was catastrophic. Some were torn apart, their forms unable to withstand the stress of being pulled across multiple dimensions. Others collided with each other, their sense of space and time completely disrupted. "Incredible," Zalter breathed, all 4 of his eyes wide with wonder. "They're using the higher dimensions as a weapon." Zik-Zik clicked its mandibles in agreement. "A brilliant tactic. The Void Eaters can't predict where the ship will appear next." Even General Kraz looked impressed. "I've never seen anything like this in all my cycles of battle," he rumbled. But the fight was far from over. The remaining Void Eaters, driven by an ancient hunger, pressed their attack. One managed to catch the Nexus with a tendril of dark energy, sending the ship spinning through space. Alarms blared as the crew fought to regain control. "Hull breach in Section 3, Dr. Lee shouted. "We're venting atmosphere." Sarah's face was a mask of determination. "Seal off the damaged section. Rear out power to the shields." She turned to Maya. "Get us out of here. We need room to maneuver." The Nexus streaked away from the battle, the Void Eaters in hot pursuit. As they flew, Sarah outlined her plan to the crew and observers. "We can't beat them with brute force," she explained. "But we can use their own nature against them. The Void Eaters consume energy, right? So let's give them more than they can handle." Understanding dawned on Dr. Lee's face. "The 7th-dimensional reactor," he said. "If we overload it." Sarah nodded. "Exactly. We'll create a 7th-dimensional explosion so massive it'll tear a hole in the fabric of space-time itself. The Void Eaters will be drawn in and trapped." The alien observers looked at each other in shock. But that's insane," General Kraz sputtered. "You'll destroy this entire sector of space." "Better this sector than the entire galaxy," Sarah replied grimly, "unless you have a better idea." Silence fell over the bridge. The aliens realized that this was the moment of truth. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were willing to make an impossible sacrifice to save the galaxy. "Do it," Zik-Zik said suddenly, its voice filled with a new respect for these strange, 2-armed beings. Sarah nodded and turned to her crew. "You heard the plan. Let's save the galaxy." As the Nexus raced towards its destiny, the alien observers watched in awe. They had come to judge humanity's place in the galactic community. Now, they were witnessing humanity's ultimate test. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and humanity held the key. The final battle was about to begin. The Nexus streaked through space, its 7th-dimensional engines pushing the limits of reality itself. Behind it, the Void Eaters gave chase, their massive forms distorting the very fabric of the cosmos as they moved. On the bridge, Sarah Chen's voice rang out clear and determined. "Dr. Lee, status on the reactor overload." Dr. Lee's fingers danced over his console, sweat beading on his forehead. "We're at 200% capacity and rising, Captain. Any more, and we risk tearing the ship apart before we can execute the plan." The alien observers watched in a mix of terror and awe. General Kraz had given up all pretense of calm, his scales flashing warning colors. Zalter's 4 arms were wrapped around himself, his eyes wide with fear and excitement. Zik stood unnaturally still, its compound eyes fixed on the main view screen. "We're approaching the target coordinates," Maya called out from the pilot's seat. "ETA 30 seconds. Sarah nodded grimly. "All hands, prepare for emergency evacuation. Observers, please proceed to the escape pods." General Kraz's head snapped up. "You're not coming with us," he growled, surprise evident in his voice. Sarah shook her head. "Someone needs to stay behind to make sure the reactor detonates properly. We can't risk the Void Eaters escaping." A moment of stunned silence fell over the bridge. Then, to everyone's surprise, Zik stepped forward. "I will stay," the Vexry announced. "My species is well suited to withstand the dimensional stresses. I can increase the chances of success." Before Sarah could respond, Zeltor also stepped up. "As will I," the young Zarkon declared, his forearms spread wide. "My knowledge of multidimensional physics could be crucial in the final moments." General Kraz looked at the humans and his fellow aliens, conflict clear on his scaly face. Finally, he let out a deep, rumbling sigh. "The Drogoth do not abandon their allies in battle," he growled. "I will remain as well." Sarah looked at the alien observers, now volunteers in this desperate mission, and felt a surge of emotion. This was more than just saving the galaxy. This was the birth of true intergalactic cooperation. "Very well," she said, her voice thick with gratitude. "Dr. Lee, Maya, evacuate with the rest of the crew. We'll handle things from here." As the escape pods launched, carrying the human crew to safety, Sarah and her unlikely alien allies turned their attention to the task at hand. The Void Eaters were closing in, their hunger palpable even through the ship's shields. "Reactor at 300% capacity." Sarah called out, "Prepare for detonation on my mark." The ship shuddered as the Void Eaters began to attack, tendrils of dark energy lashing against the Nexus's hull. Alarms blared as systems began to fail under the assault. "Now," Sarah yelled. With a blinding flash, the seventh-dimensional reactor detonated. The explosion was like nothing the universe had ever seen before. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp around the Nexus. The Void Eaters, drawn by the immense energy release, surged towards the ship. But as they approached, they found themselves caught in the gravitational pull of something far more powerful than they had ever encountered. A swirling vortex of impossible colors formed at the heart of the explosion, a tear in the very fabric of space-time. The Void Eaters, creatures of insatiable hunger, were pulled inexorably towards it. On the bridge of the Nexus, Sarah and her alien companions held on for dear life as the ship was battered by dimensional shockwaves. Through the view screen, they watched as Void Eater after Void Eater was sucked into the vortex, their massive forms twisted and distorted before vanishing completely. As the last of the cosmic horrors disappeared, the vortex began to collapse in on itself. The Nexus, its hull breached and its systems failing, was pulled towards the closing rift. Sarah looked at her alien companions, a sad smile on her face. "It's been an honor," she said simply. As the ship was pulled into the collapsing vortex, the last thing the galaxy saw was a brilliant flash of light. Then, silence fell over the Omega sector. The Void Eaters were gone. The galaxy was saved. But at what cost? News of the battle in the Omega sector spread across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. Every world, every space station, and every ship buzzed with the incredible tale. The Void Eaters, the ancient terror of the cosmos, had been defeated. But the price of victory was high. In the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Union, representatives from 1,000 worlds gathered. The mood was somber, a mix of relief and grief. At the center of the hall stood a holographic display, showing the last known images of the Nexus before it vanished into the dimensional rift. The Zarkon Prime Minister, his forearms moving in graceful gestures, addressed the assembly. "We gather here today to honor the brave souls who sacrificed everything to save us all, human and alien alike. They showed us the true meaning of courage." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. The Vexri Queen clicked her mandibles, a sound that translated as deep respect in her language. The Vexri will never forget the bravery of Zik. His sacrifice will be sung in our hives for generations to come. The Drogoth Emperor, his scales shimmering with emotion, stepped forward. General Kraz was the finest warrior in our empire. That he chose to stand with the humans in their final battle speaks volumes. Perhaps we have underestimated these newcomers to our galactic community. As the tributes continued, a commotion at the back of the hall caught everyone's attention. A group of human scientists burst in, their faces flushed with excitement. "We've detected something," one of them shouted. A signal coming from the edge of the Omega sector. The hall erupted in chaos. Could it be? Had the heroes of the Nexus somehow survived? For days, the best minds in the galaxy worked tirelessly to decipher the signal. Finally, in a moment that would be remembered for centuries, a flickering hologram appeared in the center of the assembly hall. It was Sarah Chen, her image distorted but unmistakable. Beside her stood General Kraz, Salter, and Zik, all looking worse for wear but very much alive. "Greetings, Galactic Union." Sarah's voice crackled through the transmission. "If you're receiving this, then our mission was a success. The Void Eaters have been trapped in a pocket dimension, sealed away from our universe." A cheer went up from the assembled aliens, a cacophony of different sounds united in joy. Sarah continued, her voice growing stronger. "We survived the collapse of the dimensional rift, but we've been thrown elsewhere. We're not sure where or when we are, but we're alive, and we're together." General Kraz stepped forward, his scales gleaming with an otherworldly light. "We've seen wonders beyond imagination," he rumbled, "and horrors that defy description. But through it all, we've stood united." Zeltor, all four of his arms gesticulating excitedly, chimed in. "The scientific discoveries we've made are revolutionary. We're transmitting all our data along with this message. Use it wisely, for the betterment of all species." Zik's compound eyes seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "We may be lost," the Vexri said, "but we are not defeated. We will find our way home, no matter how long it takes." As the transmission began to fade, Sarah's voice rang out one last time. "Remember this day not as the end of our journey, but as the beginning of a new era, an era of cooperation between all sentient beings. Together, there's nothing we can't achieve." The hologram flickered and died, leaving the assembly hall in stunned silence. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. It started as a low hum and grew into a thunderous roar. Every alien, regardless of species, was cheering, their voices united in hope and determination. In that moment, the galaxy changed forever. Old rivalries were set aside. Borders between empires began to dissolve. A new age of exploration and cooperation dawned, inspired by the incredible journey of the Nexus and its diverse crew. And somewhere out there, in the vast unknown of the cosmos, four unlikely friends continued their adventure, their bond forged in the heat of battle, strengthened by shared wonders, and tempered by the challenges that lay ahead. The story of the Nexus was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun.